Hello, everyone. So, I just want to apologize first and foremost for the radio silence the past few weeks. For those of you who have been following my community tab, you may sort of know the reason why, but just to announce it officially, I have been working on an audiobook. So, yeah, that's that's really cool. It's still weird to say it out loud, but yeah, that is why there's been a pause on normal content, because I have been mostly dedicating a lot of my time to finishing that. The deadline was last week, so the bulk of it is actually done. There's still a couple things that we need to do to wrap it up, but yeah, so I expect normal content to return pretty soon. But yeah, if you like what I'm doing here, and you have Audible, or would be willing to get a free trial of Audible for this, not sponsored by Audible, by the way, that's just the way that you can listen to it, so it is not currently out yet. Like I said, there's still a couple more things we need to do to finish it up, but as soon as it's out, don't worry, I will let you guys know. I would definitely like as many people from here as possible to listen to it, because it's something that I'm really proud of, and I think it's really just an expansion of my channel. The book is called They Hide, Short Stories to Tell in the Dark. And it is literally a horror anthology, so just a bunch of short horror stories that me and another narrator read, so it's literally just this stuff, but longer form and slightly more graphic than the stuff I'm allowed to put on YouTube, so I would love to see some people from this channel just going to support both the author, Francesca Maria, and my co-narrator on this project, Spencer Dillahay. He also has a YouTube channel called Don't Fall Asleep, so you may or may not have heard of him already, but I will link both of their social media pages below, and it would just be great if you guys could go show them some support and make sure they know that some of my subscribers are listening to this book. Because it's awesome that I got the chance to do this. It's like my first audiobook project, and it's just so cool. I hope it's the first of many more. Alright, so with that out of the way, you may be wondering what the next hour and a half of this video is supposed to be. This is for yet another project I've been working on, which if you have watched the trailer already, or again followed my community tab page, you will have heard about this already, but essentially it is a Monster of the Week game, which is like a tabletop RPG, essentially, that I'm doing with author TJ Lee. Very, very famous name in this community at this point. I'm sure all of you know who that is, but if not, they will introduce themselves in just a little bit. This is the primer video, basically, so this does not include any gameplay yet, but it does include us explaining what Monster of the Week actually is, introducing all the characters to you, and sort of giving a little synopsis on the plot so far. Because when we start putting episodes out, it will not start from the beginning, because we didn't realize we were going to do this. We were not planning on putting it up until it sort of developed and became something more, so. Anyway, I'm not going to go into too much detail because that's what me and TJ are literally about to do. I just want to make it perfectly clear that no Monster of the Week gameplay will ever be on my channel unless it's like a special occasion or something, but if you are interested in anything that we talk about in this video, you must go follow Dusklight Radio, who is linked in the title and the description and a lot of other places, so that is where all of the gameplay is going to actually be. I'm just posting the trailer and the primer and all that stuff to sort of promote that, but yeah, you're going to have to go over to their channel if you are interested in any of that, so just wanted to make that clear before we start. I hope these projects are proof enough that I am not dead, and I have not disappeared again. I have been working on so much for you guys. I'm so excited to bring both of these to you. So without further ado, here are me and TJ Lee to tell you about our project. Oh, and really quick, I'm so sorry about the quality of my audio. TJ tells me it's not bad. It's at least a little bit bad in comparison to how I sound right now, so yeah, I was stupid and I didn't record in my sound studio, I just recorded at my desk, so sorry about that, but I hope it is tolerable. Okay, so now without further ado, here we are. Have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you guys very soon with some normal content if you don't care about this. Bye, guys.
Hello, Dusklight Radio listeners. My name is TJ Lee, and aside from doing Dusklight, I am the creator of the Sturgeon universe and the host of the new show that we're going to be talking about today, The Nightmare Detectives.
And I'm Lucy, Lucy K, otherwise known as Spirit Voices. I do a lot of narration stuff on my channel as well.
How did we meet originally, you and I? Because I'm trying to think of like where that friendship started.
Oh gosh. Well, definitely through the Dark Somnium, right?
Yes.
Was it? It wasn't No.
No.
I think it was Nightmare. I think that's when we started talking.
I swear it was the Spaces in Between that you worked on first in the bar. And we didn't know each other then, though. We didn't know each other then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't actually, introduce... I knew it was your story, but we hadn't actually spoken, I don't think, until you were sort of directing me for NFC.
Yeah, and for the audience at home, who do you play in the bar series, and who do you play in the NFC?
So in the bar series, I played... I played a couple random side characters, but mostly I played Temperance.
Mm-hmm.
And then in NFC, I played Wendy Hatale. Who I love so much.
Wendigo Wendy, yeah, she's a badass. So
yes,
so for those who obviously are subscribed to Dusklight Radio, 99% of you are here for the Sturgeon content, and you'll know that through the wonderful Dark Somnium. Shouts out to Ronnie and to Romnex, we love the both of you. That is where the Sturgeon mythos kind of made its beginning about 3 and a bit years ago now with the bar series, which just hit over 1 million views, which is really, really awesome. And the NFC has achieved 500,000 in 6 months, which is great. It has obviously us in there. It has phenomenal talents like Chelsea Rebecca from Dead Meat, who is just a wonderful, wonderful person. And Autumn Ivy, the incredibly gifted Autumn Ivy playing Alduin von Trier. And the reason we're doing this today is that as I've been looking to revamp Dusklight Radio, I really wanted to tap into something I'd wanted to do for a long time, which is running a D&D campaign, but also running a Monster of the Week campaign. And I decided that, well, hell, I have the time and I have the friends, and I have the universe. I have my own universe, and there's a lot of DMs that might have little things here and there, but I have a fully fledged universe with characters and books that lots of people know and are fans of, and I keep getting requests for more content. And while I am really tied up with some other writing stuff that I can't talk about, but it's all really good, it's all within the Sturgeon stuff, it means I'm not getting the time necessary to develop like more of Hotel Inertia, more of season 2 of the NFC at the moment at least. And in the meantime, I wanted to give you guys something, which led me to talking to Spirit Voices, to the wonderful Lucy, who, as mentioned, we become very good friends, and I said, hey, I'm going to try a campaign out. And we brought a few of our friends together, and what we want to do with this video is we want to have that kind of conversation, and kind of introduce you to everybody, and let you know what's going on with them. So, sorry, I kind of was like getting lost in the sauce there a little bit.
No, I mean that's a good intro if I've ever heard one.
These are scripted slightly, but also they're not. So, and I'm watching my mic levels go up and down, and I am frightened when this comes to editing. It's just like holy shit. But I guess I should probably explain before we kick into what Monster of the Week is, because there are people who won't have an idea. We don't roll with dice in Monster of the Week. We utilize a system on Roll20 where our characters are made, and then they will choose a trait, or they'll choose like a move reference, like if they want to make it to manipulate someone, if they want to kick some ass, if they want to use some magic to investigate a mystery. And then they'll get a numeric value, and from 0 to 6 is a fail, and they'll mark experience. From 7 to 9, that's a mixed success. Now that can mean a lot of different things. From if they're trying to manipulate someone, I'll be like, hey, you can do that only if you do what this character wants. Or, maybe they don't get to figure out everything there. And on a 10 plus, means they get to do everything they set out to do. It means they get to completely achieve a goal, and everyone's very happy. And we're doing this, and Monster of the Week is much more like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or something Lucy knows way more about than I do, Supernatural.
Yes.
It's got that vibe of, it's very gritty, it's got horror, it's got drama, and it's got a lot of those elements. And yeah, I think that's probably a nice condensed introduction, Lucy. At least I think so.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's very, I think the concept of Monster of the Week was inspired by both of those franchises you mentioned. And it is very much based on the idea of, like, whereas D&D can be an entire super long campaign, Monster of the Week is more based on the fact where you have a creature and you set out to figure out what it is and how to kill it. And then you do that, and then you're done. Like, it's very like, sort of based around the idea that you can just do a short, punchy version of all of that, rather than doing an entirely long storyline, which we've sort of evolved ours into a mixture of both.
A little bit,
I would say.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I think that's like the beauty of it, is it's very flexible. Because as someone who's now played both, like, D&D has a lot of rules and, like, I wouldn't say too much structure. Like, it's still pretty free-flowing in general, but it has more structure than Monster of the Week does.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the DM as well, right?
True.
Like, I think it really depends on who's running the campaign, how it's done, because I will say right now, as a disclaimer that is going to be at the beginning of every episode, I probably break rules that DMs who are long-standing players will absolutely fucking hate. And I am saying this for any of you now. I fully will tell anybody, if you're an experienced player who cannot stand it when DMs deviate from the rules and whatever, like, maybe it's not for you, because I am a pantser, meaning I do this by the seat of my pants. Now, do I plan out plot points? Yes, I do. Do I plan out where characters are going? Yes, I do. But so much of what we do is improv, because I want my characters to truly feel like they can do whatever they want, not be railroaded. There is obviously an overarching plot, but there's been lots of moments where the character's done something completely different, and I have to adapt to that. And a lot of the cool things we've done, I have not written for them at all.
Right.
And I've drawn from my experiences being a professional writer, and that's my benefit. But I'm sure that, especially as I'm growing, this is my first time DMing, as I told you guys when we started playing. I'm still learning and growing, and I need to maybe be harsher in some places and more lenient in others. But I know that there will obviously inevitably be comments with anything you do that gets a viewership of, oh, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And I welcome feedback. I'm happy to hear from other DMs, but I don't think I'll change the fundamentals of the way we play our game, because it works so well for us, right?
Yeah, and I should clarify as well, a lot of the people in our group didn't have experience with not just Monster of the Week, but like any RPG, right?
Ever.
Like, I know a couple people have never played anything like that. Like, I've had experience with D&D, kind of a lot of experience with D&D, but I'd only ever done one Monster of the Week campaign before, and it was only like it was a one shot, so it was only for one day for a couple hours, so it wasn't even a lot of experience with Monster of the Week. So, you know, the way that TJ DMs our game is sort of the first DM experience that any of us have had with this sort of thing. So it works well for all of us because we're developing it together, basically.
Yeah, I think it's as any good game should be. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah,
and we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, because obviously, why are we doing this? I really felt when we started playing that we had something special, and I had talked last year to some friends that I wanted to do a separate Monster of the Week show with some of my voice acting friends, if we could get the time and the scheduling together, but I needed experience. And I wanted to have fun with it before I tried taking it to a professional level. And hence the idea came about to do it with the people we're doing it with now. And I never intended to put them out to the masses, but we talked about it, and I made sure, obviously, consent's super important to me, you know, with our players, that they feel comfortable with whatever we're doing. So we sat and talked about it, and everyone was fine with it going out there, and what they, you know, whether they wanted their names on it, or whether they wanted something promoted or not. And I felt that the rough edges of it, where it's, you know, it really is just friends playing. It has a professional aspect to it, certainly, but it's still got that homely vibe. And because we record for upwards of 6 hours a week, I thought, there's a lot of people right now with the way the world is, who really will feel like they're alone and will need that connection. I mean, one of the reasons that, you and I both work in the narration space, and people listen to horror narrations because it gives them comfort, something to listen to in the background. And I thought, well, I can provide 4 or 6 hours of content, and also people keep asking for more Sturgeon content. And I also think, most importantly of all, we're telling a good, compelling story together that I think is the right time to go in Dusklight, and it's the right place for it, to go as well. So what we decided was that we would, start putting them out there. But we have to do this primer because when we started recording, the audio was not working on the first session, which is super annoying. And a few of those earlier sessions are not listenable. They have some pretty severe stuttering. I recorded them through OBS because we're on a Discord server, and I like to use incidental music from different places. And that's not possible through what Discord offers. And I didn't really understand why the stuttering was happening, and sometimes it was too late. And we talked, Lucy and I in particular talked, and we decided that we would do a primer. We would run down the characters, the plot, the setting, everything, and then we would go through the first arc, the small arc, and then we would start things off with the very first interlude, which is choppy. But it's the best place to start because we are currently about to wrap up our first major arc, and y'all will love this. It's in the Hotel Inertia,
yes,
which is the setting that everybody keeps asking me to go back to. They have asked me for 3.5 years, please finish that series. And I wanted to, and I just never found the inspiration. And now we have, 20 hours of content in the Hotel Inertia now?
Yeah.
Something stupid like
It's
that.
a lot.
Yeah, but it's been incredible. So
we're not even done.
We're not even done. When this episode goes out, I think we'll be wrapping up. But we are right at the finale territory of that. And it has gotten more and more compelling as time's gone on. And I think we've gone from strength to strength. So we obviously won't get into the Hotel Inertia for spoilerinos, but let's go back to the very beginning of what we're doing and go from there. And I believe Lucy was working hard on a script in the background while I was just eating a muffin and being a pig. So, the workhorse.
You mean eating dinner?
Yeah, the muffin was not the dinner, it was the after part of dinner. Well, I should say as well, Lucy is the workhorse of our group. No one asked them to write notes for every episode and transcribe them, and yet you have done that tirelessly.
Yeah, I've been the self-assigned scribe.
I mean, I'm grateful. We're all very grateful. They started out very there was some cool things, and then as we've developed them, I believe the first 2 or 3 episodes had a couple pages, maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Let me pull up the last session and how many pages you wrote, because it was.
The last session was a short one too.
Oh no, not the last one. Sorry, Monday sessions. We do 2 sessions on a Monday and a Wednesday. Monday sessions are 4 and a bit hours, sometimes less, and I don't know if you might have to get it up, but I believe you at one point you wrote I think you wrote nearly 20 pages on one arc.
Probably. Well, for reference, the first episode, which to be fair, I wasn't taking notes at the time we did it, so I had to go back and take notes later.
Oh yeah.
But the first episode notes are is 2 pages long.
Mm.
And then last Monday is 10 pages long. So
well, there you go.
So it's slowly progressed into a whole thing. And
that's passion, which I appreciate.
Yeah, of course. Well, when I first started doing it, it was mostly because I was like, I am going to forget all of this because as everyone will find out, TJ makes worlds that are so amazingly detailed, and all of our characters have different, long story arcs, and we each receive different items for our characters and all that kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of different little things that we don't necessarily have to remember all of them, but they are sort of important, especially when we want to go back and verify some kind of information, and we don't want to just guess what happened in the previous arcs and all that kind of stuff. So And they've turned out to be useful for this, because we are going to go over the plot of everything we've done up to Hotel Inertia. But yeah, originally it was just because I was like, I'm going to forget literally everything we do if I don't take some notes here. But then they ended up being useful, so it's been fun to document everything, and it forces me to pay attention to details I might otherwise zone out during. So.
And also it keeps me honest, because I think one thing any passionate fans will hate is I forget things occasionally. I'm very sorry. I am the equivalent of a golden retriever. I'm really invested in one thing and then I forget. I'm not too bad, thankfully, but there are moments I do forget. There's obviously, the other thing that's really cool is that we will have transcriptions for every episode leading up to the current arc, which have been graciously provided by Lucy, and we will put those in the description of this video. And then for every episode going forward, I think probably put the corresponding document in the description as well.
Yeah.
Because some people don't have 4 hours and they want to read through what's going on, and I respect that.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, and then also, because we're going to go over the plot in some amount of detail, but the notes are pretty, like, especially once everyone is more familiar with our characters, I think the notes are going to be more fun to read through. Right. When everybody understands it.
Absolutely. Right. Well, let's dive in. Where should we start, Lucy?
Should we just start by introducing all the characters and sort of summarizing who they are and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Let's start. Should we start with the player characters first?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So to start off with, let's start with Jimmy. I think Jimmy is a good place to start.
Oh, Jimmy.
So Jimmy is playing the Monstrous. So the classes, we're obviously not going to go through every class, but the Monstrous is a former beast that could have potentially served the enemy, or just, is one of what you would consider a hunted, and has elected to work with the hunters, the humans. And in our world, Jimmy is a Sasquatch. He is a Sasquatch that has lived for, I don't know if we fully established how long Jimmy has been around for.
I don't know, a couple hundred years, I think.
I think it's been like 3 centuries. I think he was around. Oh, here we go. To begin with, Jimmy's full name is James Robert Smith III, or J3. I don't think anyone other than Wendy has called him J3 in the game, but
probably not. No.
James was born in 1794 to an unusual village. It was like very tribal in the aspects of the way that Sasquatches operated. And for reasons that we haven't fully got to yet, he was cast out and has been living basically amongst humans with a gauntlet on his wrist that allows him to appear like a big burly man. He's pretty hefty. He's a hefty dude. He's about 6'8". Weighs about 385 pounds. He is even bigger than that when he goes into his natural Sasquatch form, which is staggering in height, and he is covered in a thick brown fur with like some slight tinges on that, like for age. And he's got a big beard in his human form, slicked back brown hair, very handsome, very burly kind of guy. And yeah, he's got a lot of stuff going on, but he's also a big softy, and well, he's actually, he's not a big softy because he's kind of beaten up like other player characters, but he means well. He's a very sweet boy who likes to rage, and
yes,
he is the resident tank of our sessions.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
No, that was good.
Okay, why don't you tell us about Flebs Taylor?
So Flebs Taylor is our expert. That is the role that he chose before he started. He is a man in his mid-30s, blonde, like reddish hair, long hair, and a beard as well. Glasses. He was wearing a suit in the earlier episodes, if I remember correctly. I don't know if he still is now. I think he is. And he carries around a flamethrower and a cat named Julia. So what more can I tell you? And Flebs is he's very studious, very observant, but he also has this like endearing, I don't even know how to describe, like endearing deadpan sort of attitude that he's had throughout this entire thing. He feels a lot, but he doesn't always know how to express it. So yeah, Flebs has I think an important aspect of Flebs's character is that he has the cryptid compendium. And so basically he uses that to give us a lot of information about the kind of monsters that we're facing. Because despite the fact that some of the characters in the group, such as Jimmy, for example, are creatures themselves, we don't have a lot of information about what exactly we're fighting the majority of the time. So Flebs is a great character to have around for that, because he's able to sort of dig into that knowledge and give us a lot of information about what a creature is, how to kill it, what its weaknesses are, and what we're all sort of able to work together to accomplish. So Flebs is like I said, a very important role in our group, but he's also, I think, important in the sense that he's sort of just our backbone, I would say. He does hold the group together in a lot of ways through all of that information, but also just through his demeanor, I would say. He's very calm, and I think we all need, I think a lot of our characters need that, which will become very clear later.
He's also very good character relief, and he's very willing to be that person. And one thing you should mention, that classes have specific actions. So each class can, as they level up, they can borrow from different like class move sets, but they have their own set group. So one of the ones Flebs will utilize is I've read about this sort of thing, and that allows him a bonus to read about investigating a mystery or read about a situation and to really gain some insight. And for those of you, and we should have mentioned this, for those of you who are somewhat familiar with the Sturgeon universe I've written, but not all of it, there are the audio adaptations by Romnex and the Dark Somnium. There's obviously the books for The Last Sin Eater, Beneath the Static, The Spaces in Between, and the NFC. So hopefully you'll know some of these, like some of the things we're referencing, but the cryptic compendium that Nell Lockwood has been passed to Flebs Taylor. He has absorbed that, and that is sort of the plot device in the prologue we utilize so that he becomes the one who knows all about the monsters and how to basically figure them out. He can't access it all the time, obviously, for the roles that are necessary. But yeah, I would fully agree with that. He is our backbone in that sense. Like if Jimmy is our physical backbone, Flebs is the almost like the social, the almost emotional one, maybe.
Yeah, or just like informational. Like
that's a good point. Yeah,
he just provides us with all the information that our group needs, because again, we'll undoubtedly discuss this later, but we have a lot of people in our party who just sort of like to rush into things and act on more of an emotional basis. And Flebs is sort of the opposite of that, and it's great to balance our group out. Yeah.
Next up is Jericho Branch, who is probably going to be a fast favorite for a lot of people. Jericho is our resident spell slinger. So basically this version of a wizard. Jericho is one of the most gifted spell slingers in all of Sturgeon, and very quick-witted, very debonair, like dressed to the nines, really tuned in, and I wouldn't say overpowered, but remarkably powered. Jericho Branch has some of the best, he has some of the best fashion that I have seen or heard of, I should say, in a D&D/Monster of the Week setting. He reminds me, and when Trevin, his player, was designing him, we talked about this. He reminds me of Denzel Curry's character in the music video for Walkin'. And that's what I would recommend you go and take a look. He is a spitting image of the sort of the rhinestone cowboy. He has he changes up his fashion a little bit, but it's very like steampunk almost in the way that it's kind of done. A very nice duster, like a Duster Stetson combo. He has a red scarf on, a couple of buckles around his belt. He has a couple of straps over his suit. He has a huge coat on. which is the duster. He has locks that flow down. Sometimes there's a beehive, but generally they flow down a little bit to the side. I think he's a guy in his mid-30s, I think we established. Piercing yellow eyes, a nice little beard. Very, very handsome guy. We won't say too much about any of the characters, but especially Jericho, because the arc that you're going to start with is Jericho's arc. Mm-hmm. So we will learn a lot about him during that. And when you go on his bio, I enjoy the fact that his pronouns are just sir. Just great. Just sassy, funny guy. And just an absolute delight of a person as a character and as a player as well.
Yes.
And he is basically the sort of person you want at mid-range throwing, foci spells and magic missiles and things of that nature. And he has two birds on either side of him that are spectral called Wolf and Saint. One is a dove, one is a raven, and they're very cool.
Yes.
I don't want to say too much about Jericho. I kind of... Yeah, I think we'll leave that there.
I think that covers it, besides the fact that, as our group was sort of talking about yesterday, Jericho has sort of become almost like a leader in our group. He's just so charismatic, and I feel like he can simultaneously charm and threaten a lot of the creatures that we come across, which is a very important skill to have.
Yes.
He has a lot of talent when it comes to, just general social skills, which, again, helps to balance out our group because not everybody has those.
Yeah, I agree. Would you like to take Margot?
Yeah, sure. So, Margot Sloan, what role is she specifically? I can't remember.
Margot is the Wronged, which is a specialist class that has it. Basically, they have equipment that is designed to tackle any kind of threat when, with enough prep time. And they jerry-rig weaponry around them. They got custom armor, but they are completely human and mundane. Yeah,
and I think as the title The Wronged suggests, Margot has of course been through a lot. We have not gotten into, for any of the characters besides maybe Jericho at this point, we haven't gotten into all of the details of everybody's backstory, so I won't do that here now, but Margot is sort of, I would say, like a jaded character because of everything that she's been through. She's pretty, especially at the beginning, she was pretty standoffish and almost aggressive in her approach. But Margot also has another side to her that, we're slowly coming to see throughout her character development, which is the side of her that I believe she had before everything went wrong for her. A very gentle, caring, kind side. So we do see bits of that as well as we get to know Margot. And she is very talented in terms of weaponry. I think she knows quite a bit about monsters, if I'm not mistaken, just from her past experience. She is just a beautiful woman in her 30s, sharp jaw, sharp cheekbones, like very symmetrical features, long red wavy hair, and she's got her trusty shotgun with her, so... Actually, she's got a lot of different weapons, because like TJ said, she is specialized in that, so... But yeah, she is another great presence to have in our group. I think we all fulfill different roles in different ways, and Margot is just like, again, another firm battle presence to have there. But she can also be, at times, one of the most level-headed people in our group. Which I think is sorely needed during some of the combats that we face.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair assessment.
Yeah, so Margot is great.
And our last addition to the Blame Player characters is Dahlia Rose, who is the Spooky. And we don't know an awful lot about Dahlia yet. And she gets introduced in the second arc, so I'd rather not say too much, because we're still figuring out Dahlia as well. We haven't had a lot of time with Dahlia. But she is kind of a loose cannon, enjoys going out with a bang. With Dahlia, I will say Dahlia is a character that is only in the game just for a little while. The player character Peach just felt the game wasn't right for her, and we agreed that it would be better just to retire the character. It was putting a lot of pressure on her, and we didn't want to do that. But for the time Dahlia is in the game, she's quite slim and slender. She's small, black hair that kind of cascades down her face, round face with beautiful purple eyes, wears a purple hoodie, and kind of has like a techwear kind of thing going on with her outfit. And she's very, she's got a very interesting personality, very fiery, I think. And that's fun. And then Dahlia joined a bit later, but we have one more character.
Yes.
And I think it is only appropriate that you discuss them, and that is Callista.
Callista, yes, that is my character. Callista of the Obsidian Wing, also Callista, Horizon Stepper of the Sturgeon Scourge, also just Callista, because both of those are a mouthful.
Also Angel Dust.
Also Angel Dust, lovingly given, yes. And also sometimes spitefully given. So Callista is the divine. That is the role that I picked for her. So she is a fallen angel, currently altogether disconnected from heaven, but still has a lot of angel abilities and powers, including wings. She is an androgynous angel, short silver hair, silver eyes, big black angel wings, actually 4 pairs of angel wings. I tried to go a little bit more just a little bit more traditional angel with their appearance, but not very much because they're in a human vessel. So, but yeah, 2 big black wings, just from their back, and then 2 smaller pairs of wings kind of coming from, their lower back, wearing, armor because they're extra. And Callista is also pretty standoffish, I would say. Margot and Callista both had very similar attitudes toward the group at the beginning, largely because Callista did not want to interact with humans at all. She was there pretty much just on assignment, because as became evident very quickly, she works now, instead of for heaven, she works for Lady Death. So she is sort of a Reaper angel almost at this point in her very long life. So so she basically joined the group purely out of being assigned to it. So she was not happy at first about being there. And she's still coming to terms with the fact that she actually doesn't really want to leave anymore. But yeah, she again has a lot of battle prowess as being an ex-warrior of heaven and a current warrior for death. So she's very skilled in battle as well. Also a bit of comedic relief at times, but less happy about it than Flebs. All of them are it feels simple to describe them, but they're all such complicated characters as we keep developing them. So it seems like there's so much more to say about each of them, but also those are all pretty brief summaries, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good way of looking at it, not wanting to go into a ton of detail. Mm-hmm. So the way that the story begins, with all of our characters established now, is that they wake up, very typical of D&D and Monster of the Week, I will admit, but they wake up in a house in the middle of nowhere, not knowing how they got there. And through a series of unfortunate events, namely Flebs woke up at the bathroom, he failed a roll, he got out of the bathtub, rolled through the door, and as he's rolling through, he met Callista's knee, who then knocked him unconscious. Immediately. Yeah. And a lot of other mishaps happened before a voice came over the radio that basically said, you guys are really fucking up here. You are being tested. We want to see if you've got what it takes. You now need to deal with the voices in the woods. And what I wanted to do mechanically with this game was to give the players the ability to understand how we do some of the more quick fire mechanics in terms of interacting with each other, how to roll to check out something, roll to manipulate someone, roll to resist something, acting under pressure, which is where you know, if you want to do something really serious, you could do it, but if you fail, that's fine. But if you want to do it and you get a 7 to 9, I give you a hard move, basically, like, oh, you can do it, but there's a price to pay, or, you know, tough choice. Or a 10 plus, you get to do what you want to do, but it's a big risk. And effectively, when they were learning all those mechanics, they also need to know how to identify a monster for a hunt. And the way we ended that first session was that the voices in the woods around them, it was implied that they were basically what we call in the UK flesh gates, or voices in the woods, or skinwalkers, which are creatures that, you know, obviously take the voices of something that they've killed, or someone recently deceased, and they use it to lure you in. I wanted something really spooky, and I probably could have gone with something less spooky because it was such a good, like, monster idea, but oh well.
That was great.
Thank you. And we got to reveal a little bit about the characters. So some small snippets. Callista heard the voice of their long-lost love, Paola, who could not be here, died a long time ago. Jericho heard the voice of someone called Dennis, and Flebs heard the voice of someone called Nardalus, and who is his brother. Jimmy was knocked the fuck out, so he did not participate in this part of it because Margot, who is a hunter, found him and knocked him out while these three went off into the woods. Also, of course, you went down and you met Everett J. Blackwell.
We
of course,
did.
How could I forget that?
Yes, and he confiscated all of our weapons immediately.
He tased Flebs.
He did do that. He did also do that.
Flebs went up to a booby trap door with a metal slit in it, much like you guys would have heard at the beginning of the tomb, with our return story. And Flebs didn't want to do a lot of checking. Just kind of went out there and was immediately tased by Everett, who was terrified, and then said, "Hey, if you give over your weapons to Mr. Sticky, who is a corporeal tentacled creature with just nothing but eyes and tentacles living in the walls, he'd let him in." And then that was where you got your temporary sanctuary.
Yes.
To sit and plan.
Yes, and the viewers will become familiar with Mr. Sticky in the first interlude that we put up, I think.
Yeah. He's a little scamp. I love Mr. Sticky.
Just a little guy.
He is just a little guy, and he spits at people, but he is their weapon master. Weapon making in Monster of the Week is a little bit strange, and I will fully tell anybody that, you know, my inspiration for this is not Critical Role, which I love. It's actually the Adventure Zone. I've only heard one Monster of the Week campaign. I've been a part of 2 others, but that was the only one I heard, and I liked the way they did it, and I had a few ideas for weapons and how to imbue them, and that was what I kind of came up with. So Mr. Sticky would take a weapon and he could either transform it like Bloodborne, which is now what we're doing now. We've only had one chance to do it since then, but now when anyone gives a weapon over, it'll have a trick weapon, which means that, say for example, you give over a cane, when you activate it, it turns into a whip, a chained whip, and that's what Mr. Sticky's going to do. Now, to begin with, I just gave them all extra abilities, and I realized very quickly that that's not gonna be a good thing to keep track of, because my players can't remember, I can't remember, so we're gonna switch that up for the next interlude. But yeah, he's just a little scamp. And what happened after your planning, Lucy? What did you guys do?
So after the planning, which ended up just sort of being like, let's just go see what's going on, honestly, at that point, we all went, well, I say we all, it was Jericho, Callista, and Flebs, because as TJ said earlier, Margot and Jimmy were doing their own thing. So the 3 of us plus Everett went into the woods, and yeah, we just had sort of that was our first battle, I think. Especially against, we all had our own skinwalker who was mimicking voices from each of our pasts, and so we each had an enemy to face out in the forest. Yeah. And yeah, that was our first battle, and it was interesting to see how that progressed, because it started off pretty separate, I would say. Like, again, we each had our own skinwalker to fight that we were personally drawn to, and by the end, we were sort of figuring out how to help each other out. I think Flebs' skinwalker died first, but partly because Callista helped him in that.
Yes.
Because Flebs was very injured by his fight. And then Jericho's died next, and yeah, we all just sort of ended up using teamwork to knock out the last one. Sort of trying to protect each other. And so I thought that was interesting because, again, it was our first fight and we didn't all know each other very well yet. Our characters definitely didn't know each other. But it was interesting to see how we went from figuring it out independently to sort of working together and trying to protect each other. But...
And there was a beautiful moment in there as well, lest we forget.
Yes.
There was our first cinematic moment, of which there have become an indulgence of many, and I am not sorry in the slightest for that. I believe that both for the players and for the listeners, it should be in abundance. It should be like a constant stream of greasy burgers going into your gullet. I love the American way. Anyway, so it was a beautiful scene. The last one that had Paola's voice was it was damaged and it was surrounded by fire. And you rolled to dash in and slash it, and you had a mixed success, and so it grabbed you from the fire and like stopped you in your tracks and was screaming at you. And I don't remember, again, we were so early on, this was like session 3, and I remember saying like, where have you been all this time? Like it was like I took liberties with the creature, granted. I definitely did, but thankfully now there is a storyline reason for that. There wasn't at the time. I was trying to figure out, like, I am a really good, when it comes to writing stories, I'm a good bullshitter. Like, I can figure out like ways of getting it back together. So thankfully it's a good plan when you're making content like that. And she said, where have you been all this time? And Callista said, what did you say exactly? Remind me, because it was really good. I
think Callista said, and again, this was a while ago, so I don't 100% remember, but I think she said, I've been here.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. She said, I've been here, but I'd rather have been with you.
Yeah, that's better.
Because, she breaks Paola's back, as she says it, or the monster's back. And then obviously we skip ahead, and it's now Lockwood on the transmission, who basically, has Everett grading all of you, and says, all right, well, I'd love for you to come back over here, but you have a visitor, and that's where Margot comes into the fray, because she knocks out Chewie, takes him down the stairs, and then there's a bit of a standoff, and the rest of you are then taken to our first arc, which is the Mantis Bay.
Mantis Bay.
So yeah, I'll leave this one to you. From what you remember.
Yeah, I know. I have to pull up my notes for it. Basically the tutorial arc, of course, as we've sort of mentioned, encompassed us getting to know each other as characters, but also as people, because this particular group of people, like, we hadn't interacted before. I personally didn't know anybody except for TJ when we started playing. So we were all just sort of getting to know each other, and also, as I said, introduce our characters to each other. Plus figuring out game mechanics, and then our very first battles. So by the time we got to Mantis Bay, we were sort of familiar with what was going on. But yeah, so Mantis Bay is a sort of small beach town, I would say.
Yes.
Emphasis on small. There were not a lot of people there. When we were taken there, we were taken to the beach itself. And basically, we were told that after our original test, this was going to be kind of a follow-up to that, where, we were, of course, supposed to work together. And I do remember the sort of promise of another imminent threat that we would have to come back to later. So, all of us were still a little reluctant to be together, I think. Some more than others, especially Margot, because she had basically just gotten there, but she was interested in what was going on. So we were kind of just like pushed together. Gosh, should I talk? The first character that we met, should I talk about him?
Talk about, I think that makes sense. You were brought over there and you were told that there was something going on in the town. And that was sort of your real first prompt as to what to do. But because it's a character that you guys love, and obviously this is where we start bringing in the NPCs.
Yeah, because originally besides Everett, and Nell, we...
And Mr. Sticky.
And Mr. Sticky, yes. Those were sort of side characters, but they weren't necessarily... They were, like, directly involved in what we were doing. Now we have NPCs who, like, we just meet along the way, and they end up getting involved. So this was one of them. The first person that we met when we went into the town was the sheriff, Gary Muldoon, one of my favorite NPCs that we've met so far, because he was... Well, originally he seemed oblivious, but I think he ended up knowing more than he let on. But he was just kind of like silly. Like he just sort of was jovial and joking with us, and kind of teasing us a little bit. I mean, I think they were also surprised because, as I said, this was a very small town, so they were unused to seeing like random people just suddenly showing up. Especially since I believe it was like an unpopular historical town, right? Like there weren't a lot of people there at all. It was pretty
much a ramshackle beach town. Yeah. It was not popular.
Right. So of course the fact that there were new people here gave the sheriff quite a bit of material. But so we had to talk to him originally to sort of get an idea of what was going on. And sort of where we were, because we weren't given a lot of information when we were sent here. Like you said, we were basically just told there's something going on here that you need to stop. And so we didn't really know where we were or why. Mm-hmm. So I remember we all went to the sheriff's station to sort of figure out what was going on, because the only thing we could really confirm with the sheriff at the beginning was that we were sent there by like an authority who could possibly help. So, and that is something that the town desperately needed.
Yes.
So basically from the sheriff, we learned of the general problem, but I remember on the way, we also noticed a couple details because it was very quiet in a suspicious kind of way. Like, there was nobody out. There wasn't, like, all the doors and windows were closed, and there was, like, stuff on the, down the alleys we went down, there was, like, stuff all over the ground, right? Like, trash there was blood or something.
There was a lot of weird things. Yes, there was a lot of weird shit around there.
Yeah, so...
100%.
I think we all knew pretty immediately that something, I mean, besides the fact that we were told that something was wrong, we could see that something was wrong. But when we got to the sheriff's station is when we sort of got the general idea, essentially being that there were a lot of missing people taken pretty regularly over the course of many years. And we basically, the sheriff, he presented to us that he didn't have too much of an idea of what had taken them, and that the cases were haunting him because he couldn't really figure it out. And then I think later he had some suspicions but didn't necessarily believe them, I think. But yeah, everyone in the town is having nightmares. And these people keep disappearing. And I think that was the main point of conflict that we figured out first, or that we were told first, is that there was something supernatural clearly happening in this town, and nobody really knew how to deal with it. So you guys then ended up at the detective's office, trying to sort of figure out what was going on and where, and things started to escalate when you heard the voice coming through the radio,
and we introduced a favorite villain of the universe that has been in the NFC and obviously has his own story in Beneath the Static, and that is the voice of J.J. Watson.
Yes.
Someone you know very well.
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I think originally he was just sort of like taunting us, right? Like,
yeah.
I especially Callista, who's the one who really hurt him originally. I think he sort of just was sort of threatening us to leave at that point because there was something going on there that he didn't want us to be a part of.
Yeah, he wanted you gone.
Yeah.
Basically.
So originally it was threats, and then Flebs left. Right? That was this time too.
Yeah, Flebs started walking out, possessed by something, and ended up in front of the door of one of the victims. So during the time that the detectives had been, were sort of dealing with something else in another town, another place, there had been some attacks. And the attacks had occurred on 4 people. And as we ended the session at the time, there was a series of folders, and the folders would show what happened to each character. And 3 of them were fine. 1 of them was not. 1 of them had been just completely smashed and destroyed to pieces. And that was Eliza Ponchely.
Yes.
Which Spirit Voices fans will know from Hey There Eliza. I borrowed it. I stole from myself. What a little scamp I am. When Flebs walks in, which is that horrible little, there's that horror moment. There's nothing but a TV, blaring static, and the last thing Flebs sees is the girl smiling, and then he's knocked out. And we progress from there.
And we should also mention, we kind of forgot about this detail, but Jimmy is not with the group either.
No, yes. So Jimmy was put into stasis, and Jimmy was waking up in a building where JJ was basically taunting him and trying to get in his head, essentially.
Right. So we have 2 characters separated from the party at this point. Yes. Jimmy taken by JJ and Flebs taken by Eliza. So it's essentially just Margot, Callista, and Jericho who need to work together and figure out what is going on and how to get those people back, because they couldn't really stop either one of those occasions. So the sheriff, I think the sheriff was the one who explained the frequency of the disappearances. Yeah, and they happen every 40 years during every midsummer.
Yes.
So, obviously this was a pattern that had been happening for a really long time. Specifically what had happened to Eliza, I think, right?
Yes, Eliza specifically. And that's where the investigation took a few different routes, because at that point, Jericho went over to the graveyard to speak to the Father Mike, I think it was Father David, but that's because he discovered he could do something if he had a particular ritual in mind.
Yes.
To help fix what was going on.
Yeah, it had three parts, right?
Yes, so when he wanted to use big magic, and when you use big magic, there are certain rules set in place. Like, okay, you can do this, but you need to either achieve some of the aims of the DM, and we decided that he needed 3 particular parts of elements around him in order to achieve this spell.
Mm-hmm. It was like blood of the aggressor. Gosh, I wrote them down, but they're not on this specific page.
Bone of the victim, I think it was.
Yeah, or hair of the victim.
Hair of the victim. And there was something else which I am blanking on.
Same.
But regardless, he needed to go. He went.
Witness statement.
Oh, the witness statement. There we go.
I found it.
So he went over to deal with the father, while the CSI Special Investigations Unit dream team of Margot, Sloan, and Callista went over to speak to Matthias at his manor house, or his terraced manor house. It was like a really rich house.
Matthias being another victim.
Yes, he was the 3rd victim that was surviving and seemed to be okay. And they would go and investigate with him while that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you guys found some stuff there, didn't you?
Yeah. I think Jericho was also going to the church to see Eliza's body, because that was where he was attempting to find the hair of the victim.
Mm-hmm.
But also just to see if he could determine anything from her condition. But Callista and Margot went to sort of get a perspective from a different victim, because of the four victims that there were, of the four recent victims that there were, 3 of them had survived but didn't remember anything about their attacks, because they were all attacked by something.
Mm. And
then Eliza, of course, was the one who died. So we knew that there was a connection there, but we didn't know too much about any, and we knew this was a small town, so they probably had some sort of personal connection, but we didn't know any details yet, which I think was what Callista and Margot were trying to determine from visiting Matthias. So yeah, when we got there, we met his butler first, Carstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the main thing about Callista and Margot, which I sort of emphasized earlier, we are not the most socially competent people in this group. Callista doesn't know really much about how to interact with humans at all, intentionally so, and Margot, as I said, it comes off a bit aggressive most of the time, and they were both sort of antisocial in their own ways, and again, mostly by choice. So this was a very interesting pairing to have do the interrogation, because we were not sure at all how this was going to go. But of course, Jericho had to be the one to get the piece of the magic from the church, so we were paired up together. So yeah, we met the butler. We asked some preliminary questions, mostly about who Matthias was and what he did. And Carstairs revealed that he'd been working for the family for a really long time. And I think Callista asked him about the nightmares as well, which nobody so far has been really willing to talk about, because it's sort of it was like a silent agreement that nobody talks about the nightmares.
Right. Right. It was a tradition in the town.
Right. Yeah. But, the butler does admit that Matthias has been having some. So basically, when they go up to meet Matthias in his room, because he's been locked, he's locked himself away ever since the attack, and hasn't really talked to much of anyone. So Callista and Margot go up there to talk to him, and it's kind of disturbing in there, right? There's a lot of there's a lot of drawings all over the walls.
Yeah.
He's talking to himself and kind of rambling and talking about how midsummer is always coming, and yeah, we were both just kind of oh, this is creepy. And I think Margot was a little upset, because the sight kind of reminded her of someone from her past as well. So yeah, we tried to talk to him. He was a little difficult to get through to. But I believe that, Matthias asked if we'd heard what happened to Eliza, and Callista said that she died. And Matthias laughed and said, is that what they told you? This was near the end of the session, so it was a whole reveal situation where we were switching back and forth between scenes. But I think that's where we discovered the pictures of Eliza in Matthias's room. We see pictures of her, historical pictures of Eliza from different time periods, all sort of put together. And so that's how we sort of discovered that Eliza is not actually human either.
Yes.
And I think that at the same time, this is when Jericho is in the church. He's sort of having a moment where he's discovering this himself, but in a different way. Because the priest invites him into the church to see the body. I think, didn't he say they hadn't buried her yet?
Yeah.
Because they were waiting for her family or something like that.
Yeah, there was this implication of why haven't we buried her? You know what I mean?
Right. Jericho was originally going to see her grave, but she wasn't actually buried there. And the priest was saying it was because it made up some sort of excuse, oh yeah, we're waiting on her family. But but I'll show you if you want. And so he guided Jericho into the church, and it was about as shady as it sounds. It definitely did turn into a confrontation. I want to say that he didn't even have much of a confrontation with the priest himself, but... No. But, he sort of stepped back into the shadows as Jericho looked inside the coffin, and whatever was in there was not Eliza.
No, and the implication became that, as he turns around and, something else steps out of the darkness, as all these children do, that it's Eliza, that it's all Eliza. Whatever Eliza is something corporeal that is ancient. And so I based this off the Dream Away the Time campaign, which has a fairy king and has a shapeshifter. And I was like, nah, that's not really my thing. So I just kind of ran with that, and it was it was good. It was enjoyable, and I had a little internal clock, and that clock counted down as we get to the end of this, where the butler that had introduced the two, Callista and Margot, to Matthias wasn't the butler. It was Eliza,
right?
And there was a horrible moment where they ran out, because these events are sort of somewhat at the same time, because Eliza has this ability to kind of get all around the village, so it's not really hard for her to be in multiple places, if you will. And Matthias has a little sister, and she was taken from her room because a sacrifice had to happen, which leads us neatly onto the finale.
Yeah.
Which is where everybody is gathering at the doors to the broadcast tower to the Beneath the Static. Jimmy has been trying to break free of the bonds that he's in, and the voice of a young girl who would be Faye Muldoon, who is Sheriff Muldoon's niece, is trying to get through to him and remind him of trying to remember his humanity. And you guys ended up going in. You had a little plan. You started brawling with the mantis-like creature that was J.J. Watson. Something was watching you overhead as Jericho did the big magic. And then, did anything happen before you slayed the beast? Am I missing anything?
I think, mostly, it was just like a lot of talk at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we asked him a lot of questions about,
yes,
what he was, why he was doing what he was doing. And
also, so go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say that because JJ is who he is, and he, frames everything sort of like a game show, more specifically. He was definitely taunting everybody, and
yes.
He was trying to use our pasts, but also just like general torture methods against us. And of course we did have to bring the sheriff up to speed as well, but that was more so before the actual battle, so.
Right. And I think that leads neatly into how it all kind of coalesced, because Jericho decided to use the magic to send JJ to a portal, but it wouldn't be permanent. So send him through a portal to another world, which Jericho did, which is going to have some consequences down the line. And they managed to rescue Faye, and granted a DM whoopsie on my part, but everyone was really tired. We've been playing for a long time, and everyone wanted to get to bed. And I was like, well, I don't want to finish this part off the next session. I might as well do it now. So I kind of rushed through this a little bit, but I still made everybody cry, which was great.
We did, in fact.
With the help of Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII Remake. God damn, what a beautiful song. Nobuo Uematsu, you're a god amongst men. Because they, Eliza had actually agreed to help them in the long run.
Right.
And I don't remember the reason why. I think it was just a change of heart, right?
Well, I think originally we were planning on saving her, and she was going to stay with the sheriff and Faye, because she was lonely is the main reason, right? Like, she was an immortal being, and she was tired of sort of being a villain, I think. I think she just... That's right, yeah. She was just lonely and by herself, and there was a scene where she was by herself with Margot in a park, because Margot had walked off. Margot was undergoing some flashbacks because of the sight of Matthias. And it was just her and Eliza very much could have killed her at that point. And we all had a moment later of, actually, Eliza had a chance to kill all of us for the most part.
And she didn't.
Yeah. And so, we had to put together that it was because she didn't want to, not because she couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so originally the plan had been, we had to have a conversation with her. I think the sheriff mostly led that by talking to her and just offering her sort of a safe haven and people that she could depend on in the future.
Yeah.
So the original plan was to save her and have her stay with him because she deserved that kind of connection with people. That's what she wanted.
Yeah, and that's, thank you for reminding me. So she was just old and lonely, and she was going to fill a gap that Muldoon had. Muldoon lost his daughter and had a beautiful moment with Callista, which we'll get to in a minute. But the consequence of sending JJ through the portal, and I talked a lot about this, and I still do, about action and consequence within the game, and the consequence was that without power to all these tentacles in the sky that were giving everyone bad dreams, because obviously one thing we haven't talked about was that nobody in the town was active. There was no one in the town to help them. It was just a few people, like Muldoon, his wife, and his niece, and Matthias, who was already going insane. Everyone else was not there. And Jimmy, of course, we forgot about this, but when you guys went to your first proper safe haven, which is the spaces in between, with Sully and Cheddar, so they can go and get drinks there, they can boost their stats for a little bit, they can chill out. I thought that would be a really nice addition. We completely forgot that, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a lot to go through. But Jimmy was set loose and went mental and actually killed a few people while enraged, and the gang had to calm him. He was the mini boss, basically, and they had to calm him down before they could go and face JJ. But the consequence of removing the head source of all these bad dreams is that whatever was fueling them was fueling Eliza and keeping her alive. And she didn't tell everybody. I think she told only Jericho and said, pass on the message for me. And she went back into the building, and the doors closed behind her. And then over the course of maybe, I think, 30 seconds, the building begins to rot away and nature and vegetation overtakes it. And Eliza dies within the building.
Right.
And we then fast forwarded, even though we went back again, we fast forwarded to Nell in the office, reminding the Nightmare Detectives at the end of their first case of the most important lesson you can learn, which is you can't save everyone. Yeah,
because we'd really wanted to.
Yeah, of course. And then obviously, but we round back, didn't we? Because we went back again so you guys could say goodbye to everybody.
Yes.
Because there was obviously things you hadn't done, and there were things that, where did Matthias' sister go? What happened to her? And
loose ends.
Yeah. And you tied up some loose ends. I think you did a really good job with that.
Yeah, mostly we had a scene with the sheriff just saying goodbye to him and sort of wrapping up everything that we wanted to say. And I remember it was important because Callista's the one who wanted to do that, and then she didn't really know what to say. She just kind of wanted to make sure he was doing all right and that Faye was doing all right.
Yeah.
So that was a development moment for her.
Mm-hmm. And he said that you reminded him of his daughter.
Yes.
And I believe his, I don't remember if he called I think his daughter's name was Callie.
Yes, Callie.
Which kind of struck a chord with you.
Especially since because of the name similarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was before the battle, which is why, I think that's part of the reason that inspired Callista to go back at the end was she had felt sort of a bond with him. So they had a really cute moment where the sheriff and his wife made them dinner, and they just sort of had a cute little dinner together. I think it was just Callista, Jimmy, and Flebs who actually did that. I think the other two were doing something else, but
Stromboli.
Yeah, it was Stromboli. It was cute. They just sort of had a little
shout out to my buddy Zunk. They make incredible Stromboli, and I got that inspiration from them.
Well, and Callista never had one before, so.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And I think that was it. And then from there, it's the interlude. And I just want to reiterate for anyone who has listened this long, the interlude will be going. That's where we'll start from. It is choppy audio. And I would fully understand if it's really bad, and even on the disclaimer, people are like, Teach, this is not listenable. We will do another primer explaining, that, because obviously there's only two. Thankfully, there's only two more entries that have that problem: the interlude and the second chapter of Hotel Inertia, which was really frustrating because I do everything I can to make sure the audio is perfect. And it wasn't showing up on when I heard it back. I do a lot of tests. I make everybody wait for me. So obviously, we might need to talk about that. But from that point, things really escalate. You guys get some time off. You share some really cool heart-to-hearts, and then you go into Hotel Inertia, the one place everyone just loves me talking about.
I do want to say we got a little premonition from that by Faye before we left.
Oh, yes, you did, yes.
The premonition I have. Thankfully, I wrote it down, so I have it. She said, I see 5 hunters gathered around an obsidian pillar, 5 hunters traversing a hotel, 5 hunters fighting for their lives. And I see at the end of it all, there will be 2 choices and someone will die.
Yeah.
So, super ominous for all of us who had...
Off the top of my goddamn head, because I'm a soothsayer.
Yes.
I shamelessly ripped that off from the Adventure Zone balance with the saw 7 birds.
Yes.
But I don't care. Griffin McElroy is
genius.
One of my heroes. I adore him. I
love Griffin.
And the only way I can make this game more perfect for you is if I bring in Castile. That's how
you're basically
am playing Castile.
Yeah. I brought in Castile.
Yeah. So we'll be wrapping this up in a minute. There's lots of stuff that if anyone is interested and even just jumps in and comes back to this, you guys are going to be meeting some incredible characters. You'll be seeing those bonds be tested. You'll see a lot of revelations about characters, some horrible rooms full of horrible nightmares. You'll meet the concierge. You'll meet Willie, the undead skeleton porter, Paint Gunkerson and Paint Gunkerson's accessories and Paint Emporium, aka the greatest character next to Endicott, the effervescent, the wizard that huffs computer dust.
Yes, and Wendy.
Obviously, Wendy is becomes a part of the group. And lots of other people that we don't want to spoil, but there's some incredible characters in there, and we've got a lot of visuals that we will be utilizing and putting up so that you guys feel that you can see that. Obviously, if you just want the audio, that's also fine. We do use background music for everything. I do make sure I'm crediting. I check for permission and where I can. I don't really care if they get copyrighted as long as it doesn't get taken down and everyone's happy. I'm not worried about making money on these right now, and immersivity is super important to me, so you guys will hear it back. It's not overbearing necessarily, but hopefully gives a more cinematic feel. But yeah, I think that's everything. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything we need to go through? You are like the train tracks for me to chug along on, so I need to know.
Well, I don't know about missing anything necessarily. I just want to add that because it's partially because of the audio mishaps, but it's also because we were not anticipating, like you said earlier, putting these stories up to the public beforehand.
Yes.
That some of the audio that we have is a little bit choppy at the moment. But now that we know that this is happening, I imagine that it'll only get smoother from here.
It'll get smoother, and if we see a strong fan response, even if that takes a long time, we will, because not everybody has the solid microphones, and
right.
We're obviously recording through Discord, and I'm sure as time goes on, we might have to change how we record it, or we might have to individually record. We're not sure,
right?
But at the moment, when it's still just us having fun. And there's no real audience at the moment. We're just going to see how it goes. And you know what? If there isn't any audience for it, that's totally fine. If I get messages going, TJ, I love the other Dusklight stuff. I don't really care for this. That's also fine. We just want to see them go out and turn them into a little bit of our own show and see what happens with them.
And then, of course, we can make it into more of a production as time goes on if it becomes something that people actually want to see more of.
Yeah, theme songs, we could start editing it a little bit more to make it a little more streamlined. Right now, that is such an undertaking, 6 hours of content a week on top of what we already do. Luce has a full-time job and obviously runs a channel. I write and do voice acting and editing full-time. It's not there at the moment, and, I don't know what our threshold would be. Maybe if we just keep, even if we average 1,000 listeners, I think that would probably be a good indication that, you know, people want to be into it.
Right.
But we would definitely put the time there. But I think we want to make sure that people are interested first.
Right. Yeah.
And we also have, you know, 3-4 months of content. You know, there are currently, there's 13 sessions to go up. There'll be 15 by next week. The aim is to start uploading them on Mondays and Wednesdays, so they will match our actual sessions. Not sure of the time yet. Probably will be maybe 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, because a lot of our audiences are in the United States, so we want them to enjoy that.
Right.
But yeah, that's the rough idea we've got, and we will sort of figure it out as we go. We do hope that you want to check out the Nightmare Detectives.
Mm-hmm.
It is something that I have had in my mind for a long time. It will scratch that Sturgeon itch and then some. Everybody who's performing is giving 110%. You get more spirit voices. And you know, if you love spirit voices, you know, that angry, you know, like aggressive voice, oh, you are going to love Callista. Let me tell you right now, that will scratch your itch.
I really hope people like Callista.
Oh, I'm sure they will. We make a lot of fun of Callista, though. Like we do treat Callista a little bit like a bird, like a pet.
I promise you, she's gonna snap. She's gonna snap one day.
Yeah. She in fairness, she does give off. She's powerful angel, but also chibi squishmallow vibes. It's very. You guys will see what we're talking about.
You'll see what we mean.
Yeah, I think that's everything. We're gonna put a trailer up, probably on my channel and on Spirit Voices. We might even have an appearance from Ronnie the Somnium at some point. I don't know.
Cameo.
I'm sure he would. He wants to cameo at some point, so we'll figure that out.
And if anyone has any like questions about what anything we've said,
yeah.
Like especially if they're related to the plot that we were just talking about, or about Monster of the Week mechanics, or any of the characters. I mean, we can't give too much information because of spoilers and backstory purposes, but like, you know, we're happy to, like, I'll be in the comments, and obviously you will as well. So we're happy to answer any questions that anyone has, because
right,
you know, it's like we said, for a bunch of reasons we didn't get to fully record everything that happened before this, so like before the Hotel Inertia arc, so we do realize that it's a little incomplete.
Yeah, sorry, I thought my recording died. I mean, everything else was like, what the fuck? Like, 'cause it's gone to 1 hour and 20, and I forgot it does it in 40-second increments. I'm staring going, do I need to push the record button? Wow. I also think, like, if anyone wants to know how to run a game, how to successfully DM, like, one thing that we haven't talked about this, but I think we both do, is we would do like a debrief every now and then. Like, if people had questions about the characters, about the mechanics of the game, I think Lucy and I would be happy to sit down for an hour and do that. I mean, we often just end up just talking shit about the game for so long anyway. We do. But maybe that's something else we can look at down the line if there are enough questions, and you know, to fill that time, and we want to debrief an arc, because, you know, much like the Adventure Zone or anything like, you know, or even Critical Role, when they do like debriefing of an arc, we might do something like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would welcome that.
It really just depends on the response.
It really does, and we're not going to push anybody to do so. And I will say that the benefit right now for those who are looking for something new to get into is to be aware that right now there are no ads. There's no monetization on the channel, so there's no ad rolls in the middle of the sessions. That, I mean, I won't lie, that might change if it, you know, channel gets monetized, we get bigger. But right now, if you're looking for, you know, a really good horror slash comedy slash slice of life slash anime and video game inspired Monster of the Week session with two people who do voice acting and horror writing for a job, and then they're friends, this is it. Mm-hmm. I really think that we're scratching an itch that isn't there, and I've done something that I don't think you're supposed to do in Monster of the Week, which is lengthen it out to an ungodly level. But we've done it now, and yeah, I do think there's a lot of appeal. Yeah, we're deep in the paint, Gunkerson.
Oh my god!
And
that's a reference that you guys will understand later.
that's something you'll enjoy later. Yeah, I think that's it. I would love to see more of the Spirit Voices family who enjoy the Sturgeon content. I know my Dusklight listeners will enjoy it. If you love Everett, you love his little stories about the Blackwells, this is for you guys. And there's nearly 1,000 of you now, so really there's no excuse we shouldn't be getting 1,000 listens. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Right, yeah.
You know? And hey, I'll give you an added incentive. If we get... if we can average 1,000 listens over, like, you know, the first few weeks, whatever, I will do a live reading of the existing Hotel Inertia content with Lucy, and we'll try to get Ronnie in. I'm sure he'll do it, and we'll do I'll try and actually give a proper ending, maybe 2-3 more chapters. But we'll do a live stream reading of the whole thing as a way of saying thank you, and finishing Hotel Inertia, properly finishing it, and yeah. Or maybe I'll just record it and turn it into an adaptive audio experience. We'll see. But
we'll see.
There's some incentive there.
And, you know, our game is, I think we've already sort of implied this before, but our game is still in progress. So we have a lot of new content for it that we don't really know how long it's going to last. And we don't know what's going to happen. The person who has the most idea of what's going to happen is TJ, but you don't even really know what's going to happen for the most, especially the details of it, you know? I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, well, I know the ending.
That's sort of how improv goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I know the ending. I know that it's gonna basically be like every 2000 sitcom ever, where, you know, Callista's gonna look around at Sturgeon and, you know, smile and sigh and then turn off the power to the entire city and just fly away. And then there'll be a little title card that says Callista died on the way back to their home planet.
And nobody had power for a really long time.
and thus humanity was spent into the Dark Ages. Yeah. And yeah.
So you guys have that to look forward to.
Yeah, I have a rough idea of how it ends. I know the next arc because we're about to go into it. I have a rough order in mind, but so much of it changes in terms of, I would say we are probably approaching the halfway point of the whole game, because Monster of the Week is not meant to be a long-term, it's really not meant to be a long-term big game. And one thing I will say is, you know, we have plans as to what to do when we reach that natural ending and how we'll continue that story, because we're going to continue it.
Yes.
But Monster of the Week felt less intimidating to me. It felt more fun to start with because it's less it's not just rule focused. It's just less dense in its mechanics.
It's more freeform, yeah. Yeah,
I didn't want to overwhelm myself, and I thought it lent itself better to horror. And this is my chance to get my experience, to learn, to fail, and to grow. And once we've done that, we will move to 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons afterwards, whenever we get there. You know what would be really cool at some point, by the way, Luce?
Yeah.
If this got big enough that we could live stream the finale, that would be so dope if we get to that point where we have enough people.
That would be cool.
Yeah, maybe. That's a pipe dream. We'll see.
We'll see, but it would be awesome, yeah. Yeah. And the thing I think a lot of people will like is, the reason I mentioned that our game is still happening is they can sort of follow along with us, because truly, I know for a fact that everyone except TJ has zero idea of what's actually going to happen next. Yeah. And so we're all going to be experiencing it along with you. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Absolutely. I think at a neat 1 hour 25 minutes, I think we've covered everything. That covers it. I'd love to see the analytics when they hear our voices, they enjoy it, and then I reckon the average list time is going to be 5 minutes, and they're going to click off going, nope.
This is not my thing.
None of that nerd shit. But for those of you who do stick behind, we appreciate you very much.
So much. And we hope that people are excited about this.
Yeah, because we certainly are.
Yeah, that's sort of the goal of this entire thing, is not only to brief you on what's happened so far and, you know, sort of what we're doing here, so everyone's not super confused when we start posting random campaign stuff, but also to sort of get everybody excited about it and, you know, wanting this content and being interested in actually following along with us, because that is really important to us. And again, if there's not an audience for it, that's one thing. But, you know, we hope that especially if you've listened this far, that it's something that you would be interested in seeing, because like you said, yeah, we're really interested in it, so we hope that other people could be too.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. Like, there's lots of things we would love to see. We'd love to see people having favorite characters, favorite moments, things they hate, people, coming up with theories and stuff. But we will put them out regardless until this is done. And if no one listens,
we'll keep playing.
Yeah, if no one listens when we're finished with this campaign and we're like, well, we've got it there. Because the whole reason, and we can leave on this note, for me, is that I wanted to capture the magic of what we're playing. I don't hear all more back, but it's so I know what I've done well, what I've not. And these are moments you get to create, and I don't want people to ever forget them. Yeah. So having them there, even if, like, God forbid, all of us stop talking to each other one day for good reasons, bad reasons, whatever, I still think that everyone should have access to that audio so that they can remember that time in their lives. Because, I want to spread the joy of how D&D and how Monster of the Week and role-playing can change people's lives and can really bring them closer to each other, can build confidence, and can build world-building. And I've had many people over the years say, hey, I run a D&D session. Hey, I run Monster of the Week. Can I use Sturgeon? And I've said, hey, man, if you're not monetizing that, you go right ahead. And I've always said, show me what you're doing with it. I'd love to see it. And it seems to me that people love the Sturgeon concept because it is fleshed out. There's nearly 1 million words and books worth of content that they want to explore that. And this allows them to explore that. And who better to helmet than me, I guess. So, in that sense, I want to see other people doing it, though, whether it's my universe or they just go, hey, I'm making my own universe, and it's called the Saxa Mines. And I'm like, cool, that sounds great. I want that enthusiasm for world building and for engaging with people and talking to people that are different to you, bridging those gaps and understanding. And I hope we can do that.
Yeah.
So the Nightmare Detectives, that's the primer, baby. And we missed out so much stuff. And we wish we could bring you those episodes, but trust me, 2 corrupted episodes out of the existing 14 is enough.
Yeah.
If we give you all the corrupted, you're not going to want to listen. Trust me.
Yeah, it gets a little, like, I think personally, I've listened to some of it. You sort of get used to it, but not for multiple episodes back to back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tolerable for a little bit if you're into it.
Yeah.
And the fact we're starting with the interlude, that kind of lends itself. I will say, for those who are like, man, I want to get into this, but I hate the quality of the interlude, just go to Hotel Inertia episode 1. And if you can really deal with that, then you only have 1 corrupted episode for episode 2 of that arc, and then we're good.
Yeah.
But we are waffling now as we reach the 1.5 hour mark. Lucy, is there anything else you'd like to go through? Anything else you'd like to say to our lovely listeners?
No, I think that about covers it. Again, just that we're here for questions and suggestions and all that kind of stuff. And I hope that people like what we're doing.
As do I. And I speak for our players as well. For Chewie, for Joel, for Trevin, for Peach, and for Amy. We hope you'll join us in Sturgeon. We hope you'll enjoy the adventures of the Nightmare Detectives. And if you don't, regular content will be going out anyway, but I'm hoping the algorithm will lead you to my channel or to Spirit Voices. You'll hear our sultry voices, the weird content, and you'll go, what are these 5-hour videos? And hopefully you'll get lost in the source. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sitting through 90 minutes of us nerding out. I really appreciate it. Spirit Voices, Lucy really appreciates it.
Yes. Please
check out Spirit Voices channel. You probably have came from there, so you don't even need to worry about that. And of course, check out some stuff on Dusklight.
Yeah.
And we will see you again when dusk enters the station. Thank you, guys.